Hi, I'm Amelia Mosley and you're watching BTN. Thanks for hanging out with us again. Let's see what's coming up on today's show. We answer some questions about the census, meet a kid who's cleaning up Bali, and find out what it takes to be a political cartoonist. All that soon, but first today, how old should you have to be to use social media? It's a question that Australia's politicians are giving a lot of thought to at the moment, with both South Australia and the federal government looking at bringing in bans. Here's Jack to tell us more.
When I say social media, what do you think of?
I think it's a place where people can connect and explore.
I usually think about platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok.
Just talking to friends and just if I'm bored, something to scroll on.
Do either of you have a friend who just constantly sends them memes?
Definitely. I might be that friend.
Yep, there's no denying it. Social media is everywhere. And research shows that a lot of young people are on it every day. But do you know how old you have to be using it?
13, I think.
I think it's usually 13 and in some cases 15.
Yep, most of these sites have terms and conditions that say you have to be at least 13 years old to use them.
It's more so you start to mature at 13, you know what you're seeing and you know what is and isn't real.
I don't think that there's much thought going into the age of 13 to be the specific number, this is where they mature, this is where they're finally ready for it. It's just an arbitrary number.
I feel like that's the age that most people believe that kids can sort of take in the content on social media. They can process it, they know what they're watching.
Those are all valid points, but the reason for the age limit is actually to comply with the US law, which stops companies from collecting and storing personal information from children under 13. That's something social media companies do pretty regularly. In fact, it's a major way they make money, by selling info to advertisers. So to protect themselves from legal trouble in the US, they've made 13 the age limit everywhere. Even though here in Australia, there's no actual law stopping younger people from using social media.
And I'm sure there's people under 12 on Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok. I'm 100% sure there is.
Some people say that's a problem. Studies have shown that being on social media can have a negative effect on your mental health, your sleep habits, and can be a distraction from more important stuff. Which is why both the South Australian government and the federal government are looking at bringing in laws to stop younger kids from using social media. SA's government wants to ban anyone under 14 and make anyone under 16 get parental consent before they can sign up.
It should not be open to governments to bury their heads in the sand and pretend that social media isn't doing our children harm when we know it is.
Meanwhile, the federal government hasn't decided on an age limit, but they say it'll most likely be between 14 and 16. If the laws are brought in, social media companies that break them would be held responsible and could even be fined for allowing people underage to use their apps. And in SA, parents could even sue the companies if their kid is harmed using an app. It's something that other countries have already tried. For example, in India, you need to be 14. And in France, you need a parent to give you consent if you are under 15. But enforcing age restrictions online isn't easy, which is why Australia's government is testing out software designed to prove your age.
We'll look at this age verification trial. We know that it's not simple and it's not easy, otherwise governments would have responded before.
Of course, some people say banning social media isn't the answer, and that if used responsibly, it has a lot of positives. So, what do you think?
I talk to my friends a lot and it's hard when they live far away. It would be oh my God, I can't talk to them anymore.
They shouldn't go too extreme because it is part of our everyday lives now.
It's more so teenagers that are using it, so changing the age restriction to 16 is going to cut a lot of people out of social media, and that can really influence how popular different apps are.
Yeah, I feel a ban probably isn't the best idea. Maybe promoting better healthier social media choices and uses, because there's a lot of positives.
In the US, the two presidential candidates have gone head-to-head in their first debate since Joe Biden dropped out of the race.
She's been so bad, it's so ridiculous.
And they say you're a disgrace.
And not long afterwards, Kamala Harris got an endorsement from which major celebrity? Yep, it was Taylor Swift and her cat, Benjamin Button. It's a big deal because, well, she's got a lot of fans and some say it'll encourage them to come out and vote for Harris. American actor James Earl Jones has died at the age of 93. He was in many movies and plays, but you might know him best for his voice.
I am your father.
Yep, he was the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars, as well as which character in The Lion King?
One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here.
It's Mufasa.
Do it again. Mufasa.
The Pope has wrapped up his 12-day tour of Asia and the Pacific. Which of these countries was included on the trip? Was it the Philippines, Indonesia, or Thailand? The Pope visited Indonesia along with Singapore, Timor-Leste and Papua New Guinea.
The best bit about it was the fact that I got candy from the Pope. That was the best part.
The first ever commercial spacewalk has been carried out by which space company? Is it Boeing, Blue Origin or SpaceX? It was SpaceX. Billionaire tech founder Jared Isaacman paid for the mission named Polaris and became the first non-professional astronaut to step outside of a spaceship with nothing but a spacesuit to protect him. And what did the New Zealand women's rugby team give the King when they visited Buckingham Palace last week? A teddy bear, a high five, or a hug?
Hug? Yeah. Why not?
It was a hug. While it's a very unusual way to greet a monarch, King Charles thanked the team for the healing embrace. Now to the census, which is a big national survey that happens in Australia every 5 years. While it's still a few years away, the census has been in the news because of a decision to add some questions about gender and sexual orientation. Jack had his own questions about how the census works, so he went to find answers. Take a look.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Actually, the question is, what is your name and your age? Oh, and where do you live? What? They're the questions in the census.
The census? But I'm in the middle of a very serious soliloquy.
Yeah, well, the census is a very serious survey, so get answering.
All right, fine. I'll fill it out, all right?
Yep, every 5 years, everyone in Australia has to stop what they're doing and fill out the census. They've been happening all around the world for a really long time, and basically they're a way for governments to keep track of who they're governing, by literally counting the number of people in the country and at the same time getting a bit of information about who those people are and what they do. The first Australian national census was back in 1911. Back then, field officers from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or ABS, travelled by horse, cart and bicycle to collect everyone's information. Oh, unless you were First Nations, then you weren't counted in the census until 1971.
June the 30th is Census Day. Census makes sense.
Each census, the ABS adds or changes questions to better reflect what's going on in Australia. In the past, that's included more questions about where people's family come from.
Denmark.
As well as questions related to your health.
Well, it's better than your ex.
And what you do for work, how you get to work and how much you earn.
I'm a prince, you fool.
All of this info helps paint a picture of Australian society. For example, the 2016 census showed us that about a quarter of Australians were born overseas. And in 2021, it showed that most Aussies live in a capital city. The census is also really important because it helps the government make decisions about what Australia needs now and might need in the future. For example, it can tell us if there are areas that might need more schools or better access to healthcare. And that's why a lot of people have been calling for a question to be added to the next census about sexual orientation and gender identity.
This isn't unique to Australia at the moment, and the United Kingdom and New Zealand already have these questions in the census.
At first, the government said a question about gender and sexuality would be too divisive. It's now decided the questions will be included.
LGBTIQ plus Australians matter, and they will count in the 2026 census.
I'm the child of an immigrant, an Italian immigrant, and I really like the fact that our census tells me that half the country of people like me was either born overseas or have a parent who's born overseas. But that's also true for the gay and lesbian community, for example. They want to say, hey, my family has two mums. We want to say how many families around this country have two mums. This is just about us better understanding ourselves and actually recognising that we're really a diverse country, and that's actually one of the best things about this country.
It probably won't be the only new question added to the census. The ABS is looking at more detailed questions around First Nations language groups, as well as questions to find out why people might have moved in the past 12 months. And many hope that this will give us an even more detailed look at who Australia is.
All right, there you go. Your census is done. Now can I please return to my soliloquy?
Yes, get on with it.
To be or not to be? Wait, what was the question?
We're watching BTN from Riverville Primary School! Yeah!
This Friday is World Cleanup Day, when people right around the world are encouraged to get outside and pick up rubbish. Sass found out more about it and why organisers are hoping it'll make a difference to the big problem of mismanaged waste.
This is where 12-year-old Joseph spends a lot of his free time, walking through the mangroves and beaches of Bali picking up rubbish.
Times in the rainy season there's a lot of rubbish in the ocean when you go swimming or surfing, and also on the beach, on the sand shore. I try to pick up on streets and rivers more often.
And what Joseph picks up, he repurposes into all sorts of stuff and sells it to raise money, which he puts towards his peers' school fees.
I made just recycling so we can also turn something negative into something positive.
This Friday, Joseph is hoping that he'll be joined by millions of people of all ages all around the world who will be cleaning up their local areas for World Cleanup Day.
It'd be really nice if everybody could get involved. It'd be really good to see that people actually really care about the environment.
World Cleanup Day actually started in Estonia back in 2008, when 50,000 people went out to pick up rubbish in their local environment. But it soon grew as more and more countries got involved. Last year, 19 million participants across the globe helped to clean up 219,000 tonnes of waste. And this year, for the first time, the UN has added World Cleanup Day to its calendar of significant days. If this all sounds familiar to you, it's because we've been doing it here in Australia since the 90s, when Clean Up Australia Day became a thing. It was started by a sailor named Ian Kiernan, who wanted people to clean up the Sydney Harbour.
Here we go.
Dad was really a trailblazer in setting up this sort of activity 35 years ago, and it has had an impact around the world. Just that simple idea that each of us can make a difference.
Pip Keenan is now the chair of Clean Up Australia Day, which is partnering with World Cleanup Day. She says the simple act of picking up rubbish can have a big impact on whole society's attitudes towards waste.
And once you've seen the rubbish when you're cleaning up, you can't unsee it. And that's really powerful because it makes you stop and think about what you're buying, the packaging and waste that each of us generate, and the ways that we can reduce that. And it really does remind us of the power of positive community action.
And that's really important because waste is a huge problem for the whole world.
We have to remember that pollution, and particularly plastic litter, doesn't know boundaries. All the oceans connect, so the point of entry might be another country, but it's all one ecosystem.
A piece of plastic like this can take up to 500 years to break down, and even then, it never fully goes away. It becomes a microplastic. Every year in Australia, around 130,000 tonnes of plastic ends up in marine environments. And in many places overseas, it's much worse than that. In fact, 2,000 garbage trucks worth of plastic ends up in the world's oceans, rivers and lakes every year, where it can kill wildlife and even ends up in the human food chain. That's why experts say governments and businesses need to work together to create less waste and manage it properly. But ordinary people can make a difference too. Just ask Joseph.
So there's 3 things. First, if you can, pick up all your plastics, pick it up and throw it in the bin. The second thing, try use a water bottle. The third thing, try to not buy plastic wrapped stuff. Buy products that the plastic can be recycled.
Have you ever heard the phrase, a picture tells 1,000 words? Well, it's one that definitely applies to political cartoons. Not only can they make you laugh, they can make you think about serious issues. And Justina caught up with a political cartoonist to find out more.
Symbolism, exaggeration, irony. With these techniques combined, I'll be the best political cartoonist of all time. All right, what do you think?
Ooh, it's bad, but it's good. You just need to work on the politics bit.
Oh yeah. Yep, political cartoons, as the name suggests, are cartoons about politics. Designed to make us think about or laugh at complex social and political issues. And Peter Brolman would know because he's a political cartoonist.
So how did you become a political cartoonist?
Well, I drew when I was a child, about 5 or 6, and pretty much that's all I've ever done my whole life. And I haven't looked back since, so it's been a lot of fun.
Peter's part of the Behind the Lines exhibition, which travels around Australia showcasing the past year's most memorable cartoons.
And here's one of my cartoons.
Wow. So what's this one all about?
This one's about politics, naturally, and this one's about the National Party complaining about the Labor Party.
So what makes a good political cartoon?
When people see a cartoon, it's usually a couple of seconds that people actually read it and digest it and process it, and if they get it, it's a fantastic cartoon.
How do politicians feel about political cartoons?
They may not admit it, but politicians love cartoons. So if I do a cartoon about a politician, I'll get a phone call saying, "Pete, can I have a copy, please?" Even if it's critical of them, they love it.
While people have been telling stories with pictures for a really, really long time, political cartooning only started to kick off in the 18th century, when artists would draw funny pictures to mock, ridicule or praise people in power. And they could have a really big impact. Cartoons like these helped to bring down kings and ruin reputations. They were used to push for or against big causes and to stir up patriotism in times of war.
Political cartoons are a great way of keeping tabs on history. So it's very important, and usually a cartoon represents what people are thinking, so that's equally as important too.
But as newspapers and magazines have become less popular, some worry that political cartoons are in danger of disappearing.
It can be very hard. It can be a challenge for those who are just starting out.
But Peter says that with the rise of social media and the internet, people are finding new ways to express their feelings about politics, whether that's with drawings, animations, or memes.
I've been made redundant.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
That's right, none of it.
Memes are a form of political cartooning because it's the intent. They're making a statement, making some sort of opinion about a political issue. It's no different really compared to a cartoon. It's all the same.
Peter says that as long as there are politicians, there will be political cartoons.
So if, let's say, I wanted to be a political cartoonist, do you have any advice?
Practice, study politics, be funny.
Okay. All right, I'll be right back. Looks good.
Better.
Thanks. Yeah, learn from the best.
It looks great. I love it.
Hopefully it stays there.
Aussie F1 star Oscar Piastri has dominated at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. After starting second behind Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, the McLaren man snatched the lead with an epic dive bomb on lap 20.
Extraordinary stuff from the Australian!
Leclerc tried to hang on, but a big crash late in the race sealed Piastri's second ever Grand Prix win.
It's a massive team effort and excited to see what the future holds.
At the AFL semi-finals, the match between Port Adelaide and Hawthorn went right down to the wire, with Port taking the win by just 3 points at the final siren.
Port Adelaide are through to a prelim final.
But it was Port coach Ken Hinkley who caused a stir at the end of the match, after a verbal row with Hawks players over an Instagram comment earlier in the week, which left Hinkley with a whopping $20,000 fine.
I shouldn't have let that moment get to me.
And this is Germany's first ever hobby horsing tournament, where around 300 riders gallivanted around on their trusty steeds, competing in events like dressage, jumping and racing.
Finally today, we're going to meet another Haywire winner. Daniela is from Bundjalung Country in New South Wales, and she's going to tell you about her connection to her ancestral home. Check it out.
My family is from a small town called Bayugal in northern New South Wales. It's a place of extremes. There's breathtaking beauty in the landmarks where my ancestors have walked and swum for thousands of years. But seeped into the soil is great sadness. About a kilometre away from Bayugal is the scars of an asbestos mine. Its deadly legacy has drilled deep into the community. My great-grandfather and Pop worked at the mine. Mum says they used to come home covered in white dust.
It was so thick, all you can see was their eyes and their big smile.
I never got to know them. The mine closed in 1979. Within a decade, they both died. My parents moved to Lismore before I was born. When I was 12, my parents brought me and my 4 brothers back to Bayugal to teach us about our culture. At the Pines, I learnt how to find honey from native black bees. It was the first time I tried jubble, witchetty grub. It tastes good when it's cooked. The Long Bridge is where I spent many hot summer days. I float down the river on my back, looking at the sky. From the first time I came here, I knew this is my country, my home. A lot of knowledge about my tribe, the Whirlable tribe, died with my great-grandfather. I'm sad the knowledge was lost because of the mine, but I'm glad I can still learn about my culture to help it survive for future generations.
Well, that's it for this week and for this term. That's right, it's the school holidays already, so we're going to take a few weeks off just like you. But don't worry, Newsbreak will be right here in the studio to keep you up to date every weeknight. And of course, you can jump online whenever you like to see more BTN stories, or check out BTN High if you're a high schooler or nearly a high schooler. Have an amazing break, and I'll see you again next term. Bye.